Hi everyone, my name's Laura and I'm the Carpe Diem Stitcher. Welcome to my first episode of Friday Sews, where I'm going to tell you a little bit of what's been going on in my sewing week and then also get into the Seamstress Tag. So let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if this is the first time you've watched me, which wouldn't be a huge surprise because this is only my second video. As I mentioned in my previous video, which I'll try and put a link to somewhere in here if you've not already seen it, I thought it would be nice for me to try to do as many episodes as I can of Friday Sews, because that gives me a good way of bringing a video to you once a week. So this morning, it's Friday morning, I've got today off work, and in fact I've also got Monday off work, so I've got a nice long weekend, and today it's actually quite nice outside. So after I finish filming this video, my husband and I are going to go out for the day with our cameras and try and take some photos, but then the weather's getting worse over the weekend, so there will be sewing. So what have I been up to this week? Well, I put out my very first video, and thank you to those who've already watched and subscribed, and I hope that many more of you will join me. So if you watched this video and you've enjoyed the content, then please give me a like and please hit the subscribe button to hear more from me. What's on my sewing table at the moment? Well, I'm getting near the end of making this denim skirt. Sorry, it's really creased, it needs a bit of a press. So I've done all the top stitching on it, and the only things that need doing now is for me to finish off the waistband and also, ouch, I'm just pinned, to finish off the hem. So this is just stick that back over there. This is one of the patterns that I get sent from my mother's friend, which come through from Prima every month. And I think this was, I'll put the details down below, but I think this was from January last year. And I'm making this version here with the slit up it. So I'm not going to say too much more about it now, because when it's done, I will bring you a full kind of update on how I found the pattern. And what I think of it. So that's what I'm making at the moment, but as I said, the weather's going to be awful this weekend, so I'm hoping to get a bit more done than that. So next on my sewing table, I'm going to have to dive down onto the floor because I've managed to drop the patterns. Sorry about that. So next on my sewing table is going to be making Tilly and the Buttons Juno pyjamas. So this is a bit of a long story, but my aunt and I agreed that I would make her a pair of pyjamas for Christmas, and the top fitted perfectly, but one way or another she said that we did get her measurements, but she wasn't sure in the end that they were correct, and in the end she said she'd like me to remake the legs because they were a little bit too tight for her. So these are the legs which she sent back to me, and although they're a little bit too big for me, they're ultimately going to be fine. So I'm going to keep these. So my next task is to make her a set of legs in a bigger size, and I'm going to make myself, because I've got enough fabric, a top to match these. So that's the next thing that I'm going to be doing, but I may have to swap the ribbing on the bottom of the legs. I like this lemon, but obviously I'm going to need to do some more ribbing for the ankles for my aunt, to make sure that she's got a matching set. And I have got some left, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough. However, that said, I've already got a pair of the Juno pyjamas, and I think that the cuffing on the arms goes down quite a long way. So I might be able to squeeze out a set of cuffs for the arms as well if I actually lengthen the fabric section and then put the shorter cuffing on the end. So that's something I might try. Alternatively, I've got some other ribbing, but that's a much brighter yellow, as you can see. And so I'm not sure. I don't think I like that one quite as much. So we'll see. And I guess the other thing is whether I can really be bothered to unpick the cuffs on the legs when there's only really me and my husband going to see them. So we'll see. So that's the next plan, to do pyjama legs in a slightly bigger size for my aunt. And we've also agreed that I'm not going to put elastic in the waistband for her. I'm going to put a cord round so that she can adjust it. So that's the next plan, and to do the body for me again, which I've done before, the top. So this is the pattern, if you're not familiar with it. Now, this is actually in Tilly's book, Make It Simple, but I got this as a free pattern with a magazine. I can't remember which one now, but I just got it as a standalone pattern. So that's the yeah, that's the booklet that I got, but I'm pretty sure it's the same as what you would get if you got the Make It Simple book, which I don't have. So that's the Tilly pattern, and again, when I've made my set fully, I'll come back to you and I'll talk to you a bit more about that. So that's what I'm going to be up to this weekend. There may have been a little bit of fabric buying, but my excuse is that at least some of it is for the Sew Yellow for Endo challenge, which takes place in March, because I didn't really have anything suitable in my stash. So that's my excuse for some of it, not all of it though. So I've ordered some fabric, and hopefully that will be with me by next week, and I'll be able to show you that then. So that's what I've been up to. And then I thought, as I said in my intro, that it might be a good idea if I did the Seamstress Tag, which was going around on YouTube about 3 or 4 years ago, and I've seen lots of well-known YouTubers do that tag. If any more recent YouTubers are watching this and haven't done it, I think it would be really interesting to hear your answers to the questions as well. So I'm throwing a bit of a challenge out there, but I know a lot of you have done this already, and I just thought that it would give you a chance to get to know me and find out a bit more about who I am as a sewer, and also a bit more about what I do when I'm not sewing. So there are 12 questions, and the first one is, who are you? So my name's Laura. I'm, how old am I? I will be 58 this year, and I live in Wales, just over the border actually from England. I work in England. I work in higher education. I'm married, and we've got the 2 cats that I mentioned last week in my video, the Ragdolls, Lovejoy and Lady Jane, collectively known as the little LJs around here. But I'm originally from Yorkshire, so I was born in Rotherham and I grew up in Leeds. But I don't get back there very often these days. I've got friends who live there, but my parents don't live there anymore, so I don't get back as often as I'd like. But I still think of myself as a Yorkshire lass. So that's me. Next question is, when and why did you start sewing? Well, I did have sewing lessons when I was at school, and I have to be honest, and I have to say, if you told 15-year-old Laura that 55-year-old Laura would have been sewing as a hobby, she would have said absolutely not. So we were maybe 5 girls to a machine, and I hated it because I was so slow. It took me my allotted time just to thread the machine, and I really hated it. And I think probably it was just because there was just that pressure to get things done, and we made a wraparound skirt and I didn't particularly like it, and I never wore it, and so that was a really that was the end of my sewing career when I was younger. Anyway, and then we moved to Wales in 2018, and as is usual when you move house, you discover that the things that you already own don't necessarily fit properly in the new house, and you might need new things. And we decided we needed some new cushions. So off we went to a certain well-known department store that shall remain nameless, and we found some cushions that we liked, and we thought, right, okay, well, we need 4 cushions. So we picked up 4 cushions, and fortunately we looked at the price before we got to the checkout, and then we discovered that they were about £100 each, at which point I said, but they're just bits of fabric sewn together with a zip, I could do that. And that's how it started. So there was a bit of agonising, and was I really going to do this? And in fact, we actually did buy some cushions elsewhere for that room, but we also had cushions elsewhere in the house that had seen better days. So after about 3 or 4 months of agonising, my husband bought me my sewing machine as a belated birthday present. And the very first thing I made was cushion covers. And because of the cats, they have cats on them. So I'll pop a photo up here, and that was my very first make. And then kind of around the same time I was thinking, well, hang on a minute, I can make garments. This was all before we bought the machine. I wouldn't have just bought the sewing machine to make cushion covers, but that was the start. And I kind of thought, I could probably do that, and if I'm not fighting over a sewing machine with 4 other people, I can probably do that, and I can enjoy that. So that's how it started, and I started making garments. A lot of my early garments I don't wear. They were made with remnant pieces of fabric bought from a fabric and furnishing shop near where I live. But it got me going, and I got the bug. So that's how it started. What is your favourite or proudest make is question number 3. Well, one of them I did mention last time, and the eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed that I'm actually wearing it. So this is my McCalls Shirt M7575, this one that I was talking about last time. And this was my first ever shirt, and I made it right in the middle of the first lockdown, when things generally were a bit rough for me. And I think one of the reasons I'm proudest of it, and one of the reasons I hold it dear to my heart, is because I kind of didn't think about what was going on outside the sewing room when I made it, and so I see it as something that kind of helped me get away from strains and stresses of everyday life at the time. So I know I put a photo up in my last video, but I will stand up quickly and try and show you a bit more. So you can see, if I go a little bit further back, maybe comes to about my hips, and it's got, I'm not sure if you can see, but it's got little glittery blue buttons on, which I got, I think, from Minerva. The fabric itself is actually an old sheet which I bought from a charity shop, but I really like it. I really love fabric with this kind of paint splatter effect. So as I think I said last week, I made view B, and that's the one the model's wearing, but I didn't put the pockets on, the breast pockets on. And I made a size 12 at the bust, and I graded it out to kind of like a size 16 with slightly reduced seam allowances by the hip. So it actually comes in sizes 8 to 16 in this paper pattern, but then if you want the larger sizes, you have to buy the next one up, which comes from 16 to 24. So there is a bit of an overlap, but not much. And so the bust goes up to on so the size 8 is this is finished garment measurements, incidentally. It goes up to a 38-inch bust as a finished measurement, up to a 52.5-inch bust at 24, and then at the hip line, again, this is finished garment measurement, 39.5 on the size 8, up to a size 54 inches on the size 24. So yes, that's what I made. So as I say, this one sits in my affection for a lot of reasons. So that's one of them, but I decided I was going to have 2. So I cheated slightly. And the other one, my lovely friend Olivia is modelling. And this is a cape, and this is the V8959. And I made this view B, except, so the only change, the only alteration I made to it, as you'll see, this has only got the one button on it, and I've put 3 on because if it's a windy day, it does get a bit, as we Yorkshire people would say, it gets a bit parky up around us, because we're in just sort of on the edge of a town, but it's pretty much countryside, and if it's blowy, you don't want it flapping open. So I've got 3 buttons on mine, and it's made out of this dark grey Melton, which I bought from, I think, Dalston Mill Fabrics, and I'll put the link down below. And then it's lined with this kind of shot amethyst lining. One of the reasons also it's in my affections is because my mum and dad bought the fabric for me for Christmas 2020, and it was one of those things I was a bit scared and a bit nervous to cut into, but then I did brave it, and I'm really pleased I did. It's classed as a very easy vogue. It's not hugely difficult, but because the fabrics are, this fabric's quite heavy, and then the lining is quite slippery, and it took me ages to work out which was the right side and which was the wrong side on both the fabrics. And then just kind of getting used to sewing the slippery fabric and getting the fabric through the machine and all that kind of stuff. So it was a bit of a labour of love, but I really like it, and I'll put some photographs of me in it. And you can see it's got these, not exactly welt pockets, but it's got these bits where you pop your arm through, which all needed finishing off. And because it took me a while and I did a bit of unpicking, I ended up having to buy some new thread because I actually managed to run out, and I ran out somewhere around I was top stitching the pockets. I hadn't got that long to go, so that was a bit frustrating. But we got there in the end, and I'm really proud of it. So those are my favourite and proudest makes. And then the next question is, what is your most disastrous make? And that is really easy. But not only is it my most disastrous make, it's also one of those things called a UFO, or unfinished object. So the pattern I was attempting to make is this. And this is the V1736. And it is a dress, as you can see, with darts around the neck, and then this kind of top over jacket. And I was making it to go to a wedding, which took place last October, and I thought, oh well, this might be nice and warm, and it's got this jacket and it'll all be fine. And I twirled it, twirled the dress, got it to fit, and then I started making it for real. And I started with the jacket, and you have to excuse it, it's really creased. It's been sitting in what I would call a bin liner of shame since I stopped making it. So I was managing to get it together okay, but it's been it was fraying really badly, and that's probably my fault because I probably should have overlocked it before I started it. But in the end, I just decided I didn't like the fabric. It's a gabardine twill. It would have been lined, and I just decided I hated it. And so I stopped making it. I sometimes think I might go back and make the dress because it seems a bit wasteful, but I really just was so unhappy with it. And in the event, I did make a dress for the wedding, just not this one, and I'll share that with you on another day. But actually, I would have been frozen if I'd worn this because I wouldn't have been able to get a coat over it, and we did need a coat. It was a lovely sunny day, but it was also pretty cold. So in the event, I think I was quite lucky that I'd changed my mind and decided I wasn't going to make it. But that is definitely my most disastrous make. Next question, question 5. Where is your favourite place to go fabric shopping? Well, just where I live, there's not a huge amount of places to go fabric shopping in person, although I don't live all that far from Gloucester, which is where Higgs and Higgs are based, and I did have a lovely road trip up there with a good friend a few months ago. I think my friend will be watching, but I won't say her name because I haven't asked her permission. But we did have a lovely time up there, and we found a cafe nearby, and then went and browsed to our heart's content, and then went back to the cafe, having bought a load of fabric. So that was great, and it's lovely to have them relatively close by. They're probably about an hour away from where I am. Online, I really like Little Legs fabric and jelly fabrics for jersey fabric, and in fact the pyjama material that I showed you earlier was from Jelly Fabrics, and they're really helpful. I sent them a message about some fabric this morning and they came back to me within about half an hour. So yes, they're really good. Can really recommend them. Think they've got really good quality jersey. Have bought from Minerva, who I think are absolutely fine, although I'm really trying to support smaller shops. So recently I ordered from So Much More, who are a new shop down, I think, in Plymouth, so I'll link them below, and their customer service was fantastic as well. But generally I try to shop around a bit, and I'm quite, this might be the Yorkshire in me again, but I try to keep an eye out on prices for the same fabric in different shops, just to see, make sure I'm not paying more than I should be. So yeah, so I do shop around a bit. I also like First for Fabrics. I think they're really helpful. Okay, so that was the next question. So question number 6, what is your most used pattern? So again, that's an easy one for me. It's Tilly and the Buttons, and it's the Nora top, which I've made quite a lot. I've made it for me, and I've also made it for my mum. So for me, I've made it, in fact, actually for both of us, I've actually made it out of fleece. So you've got to be careful, because you've got to make sure that you can get the neckband. I've made it with the higher neck. And you've got to be careful, obviously, to make sure that the neck is big enough to get over your head. So I've made it, I think, 4 times for me out of fleece, and I love it because it's so warm and snuggly, and I've been working from home a lot. So I'll pop some pictures up of those here. And then my mum saw it and she really liked it as well, but she didn't want it with a solid neckband. And so what I've done for her is I've hacked it, and I've put a zip in down the centre front, so just added seam allowance on down the centre front and put a zip in, so that she's still got the collar, but it kind of flops open. And then for one of them she wanted to wear it outside, so I added some pockets in the seams. So for me, I make it in a size 3, and for my mum, I've made it once in a size 4 to get it so that she can wear it over things, but with the zip. And then I've also made it in the size 5. But I'll pop all the sizing for the pattern down in the details below. So that's my most used pattern. Question 7. Your most dreaded sewing task is? Okay, so I've got 2 again. Sorry, just have a quick sip of coffee before it goes cold. I've got 2. First one is cutting out, and it's not particularly that I really hate cutting out itself. I used to, because I used to get really stressed about it and worry that things weren't exactly on grain, or that I've not got the pattern, the fabric folded properly and all this kind of stuff. And these days I think I'm a bit more relaxed about it, and I don't actually mind cutting out when I can do it on my I've got a desk next to me, which is what my sewing machine sits on, and if it's something small I can do with the fabric just folded on there, I don't mind it, because I find it reasonably easy and reasonably okay. When I'm cutting out a larger amount and I have to cut it out on the floor, I hate doing it, and it's just simply because I find it really hard physically, which sounds a bit sad, but it's actually true. So that's why I don't like it, all the crawling about on the floor and feeling like once I've got down there I can't get back up again. But I've made it a bit easier on myself, because what I've started doing is cutting out on our bedroom floor, because there's a bigger space where I can actually put the cutting mats down and then come around the edge, whereas if I do it in here I have to start moving things around, and I've still got quite a cramped space. So I'll do a tour of my sewing room one day, but you'll find that I actually share my sewing space with my Pilates reformer. So every time I cut out, I have to move that, stack it up. It does collapse against the wall, but it's an awful faff. So I have made my life a little bit easier by moving and cutting out in our bedroom, but I still don't like it particularly. So that's my first task that I hate. And the second task I dread is anything where you're sewing with the outside of the garment upwards, but you've got to try and catch things down on the other side. So things like hemming or catching down waistbands. So the denim skirt obviously is going to be like that. And I do try to avoid problems by basting, but I still get really nervous. So they're the two things that I find I dread the most. But I do tend to batch cut because I think, to be honest, once I've got everything out, it's better to just get it done with, and then I've got projects lined up ready to go. So that is how I avoid some of the issues of the cutting out and just dreading it. I just get it all done in one go. And my favourite sewing task, that's difficult. I haven't thought about that. I quite like top stitching. I'm a terrible perfectionist though, so I like top stitching. I like sewing seams. I like when I do tops on the overlocker and I can just go zipping down the sleeve and then zipping down the main bit of the body. So enjoy anything like that where I can just kind of get going and carry on. So that's what I'd say. Yeah, anything like seams, top stitching, that kind of stuff. What is your favourite sewing entertainment? So these days I generally watch YouTube videos because usually I'm sewing at the weekend, and that's obviously a lot of YouTubers do Friday sews, and I've noticed also a lot of YouTubers put videos up first thing on a Saturday morning. So that's what I'll tend to watch on the whole. So really like watching the Fold Line, catching up on what they're doing. Other YouTubers I like, Yorkshire Sew Girl, Rachel Stitched Up, Running Stitch, Michelle the Sewing Bunny, Jess So What If I Sew. So yes, I really enjoy catching up on YouTube, and I'll link all those channels down below. Oh, and Tamlin, of course, Sewn All the Time, and there's lots of others as well. And actually, one thing I keep forgetting and then remembering that I ought to say is, although I'm now the Carpe Diem Stitcher, I have been around on Instagram for a couple of years, and I used to be at InStitchers64, so I'll put that detail down in the details below so you can see that. And also, if you are a YouTuber, you might have seen me comment as Ms Figment 1, because that's my other YouTube channel, but I just use that for watching things. So what I'll do is I'm going to move I won't unsubscribe as Ms Figment 1, but what I'll do is I'll also subscribe as the Carpe Diem Stitcher, so you can make the connection. Okay, so yes, mostly I watch YouTube. I did used to listen to podcasts, particularly Love to Sew, but now I tend to do that when I'm running, and I tend to just stick to things that I can actually watch while I'm sewing. Okay, the next question number 10, printed or PDF? Printed. If I have a choice, I will always buy printed. And yes, I'm Team Trace on the whole, although when I made my cape, I did just cut the pattern because I thought that because I made a size 12 to 14, it's so roomy that I thought even if I get slightly bigger or slightly smaller, it's not going to matter. And I thought it was unlikely that I would make this for anyone else, so I did cut it out, but I kept the longer. There's a longer version of the pattern as well there. So I kept the other bit so that I could stick them together if I ever decided I wanted the longer version. But generally I'm Team Trace, and I'll go for the printed pattern. I don't mind PDF, and I have to say that if I get a PDF, if I can, I'll get the A0 copy shop printed, and then I tend to just cut it out rather than trace it off, unless I'm really uncertain about the size But yes, I'll tend to just cut it out then. But I think this was kind of part of what I was getting at when I was talking about the ebooks the other day. I'm going to forget I've got the patterns with PDF. I'll try to keep going with logging them on Trello, but I really like having the printed patterns so I can just go through them. So yes, printed. What sewing machine do I use? So my main sewing machine that my husband bought for me when we were going to make the cushions is a Janome Atelier 7. And I was super lucky because we found one on eBay that someone had apparently bought in error, and I think they bought it from Amazon and they'd, quote, forgotten to send it back within the time limit for doing so. So although it's worth well over £1,000, we got it for actually quite a lot less because we bid for it on eBay. So I was super lucky. And I think my husband just took the view, well, if I didn't like it, we'd just sell it on eBay again. But I do like it, I love it. So my main machine is the Janome Atelier 7, and that was a birthday present. And then the following year he bought me my overlocker, and that's an Elna, I can't remember exactly. It's an Elna Pro 664, Elna 664 Pro. I'll put the exact name down below, which again, I really like once I got used to it. Did think about getting a baby lock with the automatic threader, but actually I've really persevered and I don't find it too bad to thread, so that's why we went for the Elna. And then my other machine, this was a Christmas present, I'm lucky enough I've got a cover stitch as well, and that's the Janome 2000 CPX, and again I'll put the details below. So I got that because I just quite like the idea of doing hems on it, and I might make active wear. So I'm very lucky, and I've got 3 lovely machines. I like them all. And the final question, do you have any other hobbies? Yes, as I mentioned in my first video, I like to knit. I've been knitting far longer than I've been sewing. I learnt to knit when I was 4. My gran taught me on a pair of bright orange size 4 knitting needles, which I think my mum's still got somewhere. And I've knitted on and off pretty much ever since. And I like to crochet, but I taught myself to crochet probably about 8 years ago. And I'll do a video where I share with you some of my knitting and crochet makes. So they're my other crafty hobbies, if you like. I also like reading. Really quite like things like thrillers, things like Val McDermid. Who else do I like? Susan Hill, Simon Serrala series. So if you've got any good thrillers to recommend, please let me know. Please let me know in the comments below. And I also like doing things like crossword, and I've just got addicted to Wordle. My husband and I do it every morning before we get up. So that's anything wordy, word games, things like that. I like to run. And I also, this is really more pre-lockdown, but we're trying to get back into it. I play golf, again mostly with my husband, but we haven't really found anywhere regular to play here yet. We used to play at a club when we lived down south, and we also do ballroom dancing, which is actually how we met, a university ballroom dance society. So and again, that's something we've been trying to get back into post-lockdown. So that's me. I hope you enjoyed watching and that I haven't rabbited on for too long. If you've liked what you've heard, then please do like and subscribe. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again in my next video very soon. I hope you get some sewing in this weekend. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.